Hello, welcome to the Agon Institute of Sports Ministry. It's great to be back with you. I want to welcome you to our session. And yeah, I know many of you are taking this for credit, and some of you are also just taking this for your own knowledge. And so we welcome you for whatever reason you're engaged with us, but we're excited that you're here and that you're with us. My name is Jonathan Detweiler. I work with Greg in CSRM.
Somebody needs to.
Well, we do our best, to work together. So, no, it's a privilege. It's really a privilege to be here. I am overseeing our international focus and initiative, and Greg is the executive director of CSRM, also a doctor, one of the foremost apologists in sports ministry today, and so we are in a series on talking about muscular Christianity, the foundations of sports ministry, and we've been talking a lot about the roots of sports ministry, looking at different people who've made an impact in the world of sports ministry way back when, many years before either of us were here. Thomas Arnold and George Williams. And today we're going to be looking at the Stud Brothers, I think.
What a great name for a bunch of athletes.
Isn't that? I love that. That's great. But the reason that we're doing this is because we believe that these guys, they had so much experience. They had a lot of different things that happened in their life, in their ministry. And if we look back at them, we can see things that we can learn, hopefully that we can take from their experience, their mistakes, as well as their successes,
right,
and apply to our own lives and to our own ministry.
That's right.
And so that's the whole premise for why we're investigating these guys and checking into the things that they did. And so it's really a privilege to be with you today. So let's get started, Greg.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for your kind words. And right, we want to remind you that if you are students taking this for credit at a seminary or some sort of university, that you're going to need to take exam quality notes here, and that there's some blanks of the PowerPoint presentations that you're going to receive. You'll need to fill those in, and also you're going to need to have additional notes. And regardless whether you're taking this for credit or not, we want all of you to take the notes that you think that God is really inspiring you on for those lifetime ministries. Again, it's a models course, and so we're trying to learn these models. And as Jonathan set it up for us, we have been the roots of the muscular Christianity movement. We're moving more into those people today, and the next few sessions will be on these people that were really the bellwethers, if you will, of the muscular Christianity movement. And this is the precursor to our day and age, the sports outreach movement. So the muscular Christianity era gives way to the sports outreach era that we're in today.
Good.
But there's a lot to learn. All right, on your first slide, you're going to see some books and other references there that will help you get started, even as you want to do extra work, as you want to look at these brothers and what they did. But the three brothers, the three Stud Brothers, C.T., J.K., and G.B. or George, they were raised by a fairly wealthy aristocrat in England. And their father actually was converted by D.L. Moody when Moody came to England and held his revivals. And in fact, our next session will be on Moody, and we'll start to see how revivalism and the muscular Christianity era really intersected. We're going to get a taste of that today. They were all known as world-class cricket players. And cricket is not a bug that you squash. In America, we don't understand that as much, but the world knows cricket as one of the foundational sports, actually, for what people would say is maybe the top 2 or 3 sports in many countries and around the world.
And I guess in the U.S. our comparison would be baseball. Although
Probably
it's different, but
probably the closest. Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar with the sport of
Right.
cricket.
They said I would be a great cricket player because all of my balls that I hit in baseball were foul balls. And
cricket, it doesn't matter.
And there's no foul territory in cricket.
That's right.
So little did I know I should have gone that direction. Well, Kynaston, the one brother Kynaston, J.E.K., was the most spiritually on fire of the three brothers at first. And his impact on Moody's missions is maybe unknown to some, but in that day was really well known. Now, cricket is a game that takes so long to play. It can play up to 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Take 5 days for some sorts, and I can't keep all the matches. There's test match and there's other versions, and yet for 5 days, so only the posh, as our English brothers and sisters would say, the elite could play it because they had leisure time. And by the way, you can play 5 days and still end up in a tie. So that's another interesting thing about cricket. Well, these men, these stud brothers, were joined at one point by other men that became known as the Cambridge Seven. R.C. Morse, one of the great historians of the YMCA movement, uses the term Cambridge Band. But these were men who were joined together, and they had a lot of this muscular Christianity background in cricket, and they went overseas on missions. Now, they didn't necessarily, I don't think we can necessarily say that they were sports missionaries, but they certainly were muscular Christians, and part of what they did when they went to China and India and other places is that they used sport as part of their methodology.
Well, some people say they were really the first sports missionaries.
Yeah, I think some would say, and I think they have some validity, but they would not have said that they were going on a sports mission.
Exactly, right.
They were going on a mission field. They happened to be cricket players, and they used a lot of that to build relationships. So they did form an early model of this. Now, on your third slide, where it starts to talk about J.E.K. or Kynaston Stud, as we said, he was the most spiritually on fire of the three brothers. And in fact, C.T. Stud, who became probably the most well-known in our circles, later credited with his older brother with being his example in many, many ways. Now, let's set the stage here a little bit with Moody and the Stud family. Obviously, Kynaston was influenced by Moody, but also Moody by him. In fact, the picture you'll see in the slide is a picture of the compound, if you will, the campground where Moody held his conferences. This is Northfield, and it was one of two places that Moody began to do this kind of work, this kind of sports and camping kind of ministries. And this would have been in the very northwest corner of the state of Massachusetts in America. Now, Moody came to England, won Stud's father to Christ, and during that time, Kynaston had Moody come with him to the college Bible study that he was leading at that time and involved with. And what was interesting about that is that Moody had gotten away from the college work. And he had worked in the YMCA. We'll come all this next time with Moody. But just suffice it now to know that he had gotten away from working with college students at all. And when Kynaston asked him to come back, it just kind of reinvigorated him about a desire to do the very things that they were doing and bring it back to America. And so that was really the foundational thought for him to start these Northfield conferences. And it was the beginning of what we call the North Atlantic Corridor. The North Atlantic Corridor was this coming and going of people from England to America and Canada and back. And our very good friend Brian Mason, who was on our CSRM staff for many years, said that he felt very, very privileged to know that we're all back in this North Atlantic corridor together. and that were living on and fulfilling the roots of hundreds of years that the countries and the cultures have been united in these kind of ministries. Now, we mentioned last time a little bit about John R. Mott, and we'll come to him later as well, who was the man that George Williams passed kind of the YMCA legacy off to, when he was asked about, was there a real live Tom Brown? Remember, we talked about 2 sessions ago, Tom Brown, the fictional character that was written by Thomas Hughes in his novels about Tom Brown, and he was kind of this fictional character, Tom Brown was, that would embody all of a muscular Christianity. And when Mott was asked did he believe that there was a real life Tom Brown, he said that until he met Kynaston Studd, he didn't think there was. But what he saw in Kynaston was this really robust, vibrant, masculine Christian who embodied all that muscular Christianity was all about. Now, you'll have to also remember a number of sessions ago when we talked about the 4 concepts of muscular Christianity, that the British version of it was much different than the American. But then that international one, Kynaston kind of bridged the gap. And just as a quick review, the British was much more, I'm not going to call it secular, but it wasn't as vibrantly Christian. And then the American version started off very Christian, but got more into the recapitulation theories of Gulick and others. And this is by review of those who have tracked with us so far. But Kynaston Studd and the Studd brothers were the ones that kind of bridged all of those and kept the evangelical faith, but yet kept this robust manliness aspect of it as well. Well, Kynaston actually came then at the invitation of Moody to America, and he began to circulate amongst all of the colleges, many of the colleges on the Eastern Seaboard and even in Canada. And when he came to Cornell University, where Mott was a young student, Mott sought him out and said, this is truly a muscular Christian like Tom Brown was fictionally. And at the back of the old Botanical Hall there in Cornell University, Kynaston Studd spent many hours talking with Mott and eventually led Mott to Christ. And so here is Moody working for the YMCA, goes out on revivalism, goes to England, wins the Studd brothers' father to Christ. The Studd brothers then become Christians, and when Moody comes back, he gets there to the Bible study by Kynaston. Kynaston comes to America and leads these people to Christ. And it's just this amazing North Atlantic corridor and how God had all these things. Now, you're totally confused, aren't you?
No, I'm tracking.
All right.
That's good.
I'm trying to
You're showing how it all fits together. All the different roots are interconnected, and that's very important.
Okay, so let's move now to C.T. Studd. C.T. is better known than the other brothers today, primarily because somebody wrote a biography of him.
Mm-hmm.
Another model for sports outreach is to write novels, biographies. If you have a writing skill, you don't have to be a world-class cricket player, but maybe God has given you other gifts.
And that's what Tim Conrad is doing as well with Uttermost.
Absolutely.
He's one
Tim
of
is
the modern leaders who's actually taken that on.
And he's writing a series of novels that are geared for the pre-adolescent and middle adolescent ages. Wonderful. But okay, C.T. was better known because of these novels. But before we actually leave Kynaston, what I want you to understand is that He had no biography, but he lived a quiet life in London, became Lord Mayor of London. And I believe this would be a good research project for somebody to help us know even more about the stories of Kynaston. Let's talk just briefly about his time in England. I mentioned that he came over, and during his American tour, he met with James Naismith, with Amos Alonzo Stagg, C.K. Ober, Luther Wishart, R.C. Morse, John Armott, Moody. This reciprocal cooperation between the countries and amongst the cultures of the world and amongst the muscular Christianity leaders is a model for us today. They work so much better together then, Jonathan, than I think we do today within our ministries. And for those of you who may not know, it's a moving target a little bit, but there's someplace between 10 and 12 official ministry partners today that are laser focused on the local church, helping them do their sports outreach. They have to be involved in a project like UW and CSRM is involved in the Agon Institute together, and CSO and UW, and there's 7 foundational partners, a part of the REACH gathering. This is how we're working together today, but we actually kind of picked up on this. We said, Brian Mason and Tim Conrad and others of us, we said, why can't we do what they did? And some of what's happening in today's sports outreach movement is this coming together of these different ministries. You work for Uttermost
Right.
and for CSRM,
Right.
on staff of both.
Right. I think it's a realization that you can't reach the whole world by yourself.
Exactly.
And that you need God's help, but also the help of other brothers who are committed to the same passion, same vision.
Yeah, so these guys were working together, and you know, one last thing about how important this is, going back to that Botanical Hall experience that Mott sought out this muscular Christian, and he said, I remember only 3 sentences. Mott says, 3 sentences that Kynaston said to me. Seekest thou great things for thyself? Now obviously it was in language that was a little different than today. First sentence, seekest thou great things for thyself? Seek them not. Seek ye first. You can finish the verse. The kingdom of God. And all these things will be added unto you. And so what Mott was doing was learning from Kynaston, and Kynaston led that young man to Christ, and then Mott became a world evangelist. In fact, his biography is called World Citizen because he was so well known. So I ask you, student that are watching this video, are you seeking great things for yourself? Don't seek that. Seek the kingdom of God. If there's no other model you learn from this course, that was worth the price of this course. Because you know, Jonathan, we fool ourselves sometimes. We think we're doing kingdom things, but we're trying to build our own kingdom. If we're honest, at the end of the day, we're trying many times to do great things for ourselves. Seek those not. All right, so some models from Kynaston. Maybe be a writer. Mott was influenced by a Tom Brown novel that Thomas Hughes wrote about a muscular Christian, a fictional one. That's what got him started. When he saw that muscular Christian in Kynaston, that's what led him. Reach who you are positioned to reach. Kynaston reached fellow Bible study students or 5 fellow college dorm and other roommates and other associates and brought them into a Bible study. Who are you positioned to reach? Kynaston understood that. Emphasize the Bible. Kynaston convinced the Y that they needed to be more dedicated to the Bible study. And don't overlook the influence on your own family that he led his own brother to Christ. So, there are some models. Okay, now, CT. Again, he's an athlete, world class, prep school, college, national team for England. Part of England's best ever cricket team by historians. That team included W.G. Grace, and you see the picture there of this cricket team, and Grace is in the middle. In these old pictures, the elite athlete, the superstar, was always placed in the middle. So he and his brothers were named captains of the Cambridge team in successive years. George in 82, CT in 83, and Kynaston in 84. So he was a stellar player at each level. Now we're going to show you how he went to a few things here, and he came to faith. He came to faith. Now this would be in your 8th slide, and obviously influenced by a father who had been influenced by Moody. And when he came to faith, and when Kynaston had really got him to go all the way with Christ, he literally gave away his inheritance. Now, in that day, 25,000 pounds was an unbelievable amount of money. And he probably was going to be heir to much more at some point. Today, that would be maybe $50,000 or maybe $40,000. It depends on your exchange rate. But when you go back to 1887, so when you go back, what would that be? 130 years? How's my math? Is it 230 years? Whatever it was, it was a long time ago. And at one time I knew what that would translate into, but it would be in the tens of millions of dollars today. He gave it away. He gave 5,000 pounds, again that's the English monetary system, to Moody, to George Holland, to George Mueller, and to the Salvation Army. He single-handedly helped a lot of them start some of their ministries in a lot of places. And now he goes to China, on your 9th slide. He goes to China as one of the famed Cambridge 7. He went to India from 1900 to 1906. And beginning with the Northfield conferences that, remember, Kynaston went to, the Stud brothers encompassed and embodied the themes of those Northfield conferences. All to go, and go to all. These were the themes for these muscular Christians. All to go and go to all. The evangelization of the world in our lifetime. These were the two things that they got out of the Northfield conferences, and it's what we're hoping we get out of Reach Gathering today. And this spawned what was the most revolutionary and most unbelievably influential movement of that day, the student voluntary missionary movement. This is what the Cambridge 7 and others inspired. And this movement literally sent tens of thousands of missionaries throughout the world in a very short period of time. Well, then he moved on, and after that era of his life, he moved to the Nile region in Africa and lived there the rest of his life. In fact, he went and didn't see his family for decades. If you go now to your next slide, this missionary that he became, he spoke all over England to the YMCAs. He spoke all over to brotherhoods between 06 and 08, as my grandfather called it, 06 and 08. But during that era of the early 1900s, he went around and he raised money. And he went to this upper Nile region where there were cannibals, and obviously put himself in great danger. He was there from 1910 until his death. A little bit of his personal data. I want to tell you about his proposal, Jonathan. And
proposal to his wife?
To his wife. Yeah. And for those students that have not yet proposed, I think this would be a model for you. Quote, I'm going to quote. He's saying this to his Priscilla. Priscilla, you have neither the mind of God nor the will of God in this matter, but I have. And I intend to marry you whether you will or not. So you'd better just make up your mind and accept the situation. Oh, that'll fly a long way today.
Not in our culture.
Her reply, what was I to do? And Priscilla was a pretty Scottish girl, and she supported CT all those years that he was overseas. She raised the daughters and the finances. He was like mono-focused on the mission, leaving his family behind. It was a day and age that was a little different than ours today. She fully supported this. She felt like she was in a ministry for him. And she literally was the one that would take all the pictures and all the reports. Now, this was before texting.
And Skype. And WebEx.
It was before a lot of things. And every few months when the package would arrive, she would take this and she would go out to the churches. She would go out to the missionary societies. And she would continue to raise money for him to be away on that mission field. Well, he did not see his family for years at a time, and his health began to fail. That next slide, you'll see a grizzled old missionary veteran. And while there's much to emulate from him, Jonathan, there's much to learn from of what not to do. And his athletic approach was always to leave it all on the field. My wife accuses me oftentimes of being all or nothing. You're either in or not. And then she's quick to say, I love it when you're all in with me. And you're all or nothing with me and the kids, that's great. It's sometimes that the other things are maybe not so great. And my wife is obviously very supportive. But he would work 18 to 20 hours a day on the mission field. And he often was difficult to work with. This is how his daughters and son-in-law, who wrote the biography, this is how they described their father. He was difficult. And that he literally destroyed his earthly temple from overwork, lack of care, a litany of illnesses and physical maladies that went untreated, such as losing his teeth. I mean, he lost his teeth. All of this because he was almost like trying to prove that he was sold out for Jesus. And he actually became addicted to morphine. And there's some problems, obviously, with that. So we can learn a lot from him, but we certainly don't want to learn everything, or at least model everything from him. So, some of the models from CT. Use your athletic prowess for missions. And I would encourage those of you that are elite athletes or coaches to not give up on that too soon. That can be a powerful, powerful way of reaching people. But it's not just enough to be that athlete. And if your athleticism, or your athletic involvement rather, causes you to get away from your spirituality, I think we got another problem to talk about. And also that to associate and join with others. How can you build partnerships? Partnership means more than we just like each other, but that we're actually going to do something together, a gospel-centered something. As you say, we can't all reach the world by ourselves. I do think that one of the greatest models from CT was that he sacrificed all for Christ's sake. But I don't think that neglect of family and health and personal well-being, I don't think that's how we do it. So I think that there's a lot here. Jonathan, what are you picking up from this?
Yeah, the points that you raise are things that struck me as well. just their model of partnership. I think today, in our day and age, we want to do what we can and build our own little kingdom. And we need to realize that everybody has different gifts and talents. Different organizations, different people bring different strengths and different focuses. The way that the Stud Brothers and Moody connected, and the way that the things that he did inspired them, and vice versa.
The North Atlantic Corridor.
Exactly. I think that's definitely something that we should model. And then also the commitment of CT to give it all and to sacrifice everything, but so much so that I don't know, I think in the end maybe he probably even lost his family. In reading his biography, those would be questions that I would like to dig deeper into to discover more about him and understand. But certainly some things that we can apply, but also things that we need to take as cautions in our own ministry, in our own lives, and learn from. So, yeah, it's been very insightful, Greg. Thank you for sharing.
Well, we're going to continue on in this, and we're going to go into the revivalism within muscular Christianity.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to look more at D.L. Moody.
Right? And then Billy Sunday, right. And some of those that were involved in these various ways. And so there's a lot more coming forward, but the main thing we want to leave with you today is, how has God informed your mind and transformed your heart so that you can go and form your own kind of ministry? What are the models that you're learning from this so that you can begin to see how God is moving you? You've been created in a specific way. You've been positioned in a specific way. Obviously, you're getting trained, and you should be commended for that. And God's going to use all of that to create your own unique model within the overall model.
And I think it all comes back to the verse, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added." So we hope that through these courses, that's what we're pushing you towards, to seek Christ first. And as you do that, then everything else will become clear.
Let's go out with that again, Jonathan. Let's go out of this session with those words that Kynaston Studd said to John R. Mott as a young college student in the back of an old botanical hall at Cornell University in New York. "Seekest thou great things for thyself? Seekest them not. Seek ye the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you."
Very good. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. I'm Jonathan Detweiler. This is Dr. Greg Linville. Have a great afternoon, evening, whatever, wherever it is you are. Bless you.
Thank you.